All right, we are back with more NBA coverage, and to get straight into it, got to go all the way back to September 20th as the Wizards would sign Sharife Cooper to a two-way deal. I think this has just become the norm for Sharife Cooper at this point. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, before he did get drafted in 2021, it was a name that certainly got around, to say the least. But, I don't know, when it came around, I guess teams definitely all over the place with him getting drafted in the second round, definitely passed all over him. They just must not have really seen a lot of appeal from him. And, the Hawks did initially give him a two-way contract themselves. In the few games that he has played in the NBA to this point, which would only be in his rookie season, by the way, he just hasn't done enough to really convince teams at this point that they should grant him a roster spot. All his stops here, because I do remember him getting picked up repeatedly by the Cavs, but it's like they already have Darius Garland at that point, so your job is definitely going to be tougher if you're trying to stake your claim there. And yet, even though he's probably gotten a good amount of attention when it comes to G League rosters, he still just hasn't really taken that next step yet. I guess there are other teams around there who are trying to consistently give him a chance, and now the Wizards are the latest team to do just that. But this could also be a trap for him, and I really don't know if anything is going to change for him here. Like, yes, the Wizards are going to be bad enough. So, honestly, do they really have much to lose with allowing Sharife Cooper to play for at least a little bit in some of these games? You don't have the strongest core of guards right now. And you did lose Jordan Poole in the offseason via trade to the Pelicans. So I don't know. There is a chance that he can actually get some burn with this roster and put up decent numbers because of how badly they're going to be getting beaten. But at the same time, where exactly is that road supposed to lead? Like, honestly, as long as he proves himself in the NBA, then I guess it's all right. But is that really the way he would want to carve out his career at this point? He's already 24 years old. So, the chances, even though the potential might have been there, or at least maybe people wanted to be there before the draft, it's starting to wear a little bit thin. Like, how many more chances are they willing to give him? That's just the really intriguing question here. Hopefully he does well. Hopefully the Wizards give him a chance. They don't really have an excuse. Like, their roster is still going to be one of the worst ones as a collective in the NBA. So at least if he's getting some time off the bench, like, okay, that shouldn't really hurt you too much, I would think. But after this deal is up, if he still hasn't proven himself to be a good enough player to take a chance on in terms of giving him an actual roster spot, then I really don't know. Honestly. Moving on to news from September 22nd, and some very disheartening event would take place for the Rockets here, because it would be detailed by Shams that Fred VanVleet would tear his ACL, and he could miss the entire season due to that injury. It will later be confirmed that, yeah, he's more than likely going to miss the rest of the season with that. And it sucks for a team as good as the Rockets appear to be right now. All up and down the board, man. Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith Jr., obviously Kevin Durant in the offseason to be that closer in moments where a lot of these younger, less experienced guys were just being put in these spots last year and especially in playoff time, and it just did not end well enough for them, well enough to advance out of the first round. And we know Kevin Durant can certainly bring that edge. You also have Amen Thompson, the chance to ascend into a superstar on this team as well. And then a whole litany of nice bench pieces as well, mainly Tari Eason, for example. They just have a perfect combination of defense and also an ability to get physical inside. But the key for them this offseason in getting a guy like Kevin Durant was to really take things to the next level by improving their shooting. And also just making it even more optimal for a guy in VanVleet's position to distribute the ball around too. Like, that just makes things exponentially easier for him as a pure point guard to move it around, get people in their spots, and let them go to work. The one fatal flaw that the Rockets were dealing with last year was that a guy like Jalen Green, for example, was not a true point guard. So you had to get VanVleet, of course. And you saw what happened is he was able to immerse himself into this roster. Playoff caliber team. But he was their only playmaking point guard, only true facilitator at that position. And you lose him for the season. Now you're really questioning a lot. Now, of course, my thinking in this case would have been that they would try to go out and get somebody to fill that role. I was thinking, and I was like, okay, wait a minute, because I had also seen this as well. Russell Westbrook was still a free agent at this point, and my understanding was that, hey, I mean, you don't have a true one right now, and Russell Westbrook doesn't really have that much to lose at this point if he is on the downturn of his career. So it's like, just give him like a cheaper deal. You don't necessarily need to overpay for him, but he could be at least a solid point guard for you, right? But then reality set in. Because at this point, man, Russell Westbrook, even though he has shown that he has been more accepting of like bench roles and things like that, if you are trying to center your entire offense around him, there's a part of me that believes that he would still try to take it all the way back to prom 2016 triple-double Russ. Just sprinting with his pure speed all the way to the basket and dunking over people, bullying defenders in the lane. Like, he would certainly go for that if they tried to make that a Westbrook-centric offense. And he's just so far removed from that. That is so completely different from what that Rockets team needs right now, that they haven't decided to do anything there. In fact, Westbrook is still a free agent at this point, so nothing's happened. And honestly, if it's gone on for that long of a time, nothing probably will happen there, at least. However, there is another alternative they do have to that. And that is by making Amen Thompson their point guard. Now, maybe he wouldn't initially be considered a pure playmaker off the bat. But mind you, this is a person who did play point guard in the Overtime Elite League. So he has experience with the position. And that would just create an absolute mismatch for so many defenders around the league. If, again, he can figure out his shooting. He would naturally have to take that stride there. But he's got all the other tools you would want, especially for the modern day point guard. He's got the fucking athleticism. He's got the athleticism. He can definitely finish around the rim. And an advantage over most tall point guards as well. Exceptional fucking defense. And in a league that can be point guard driven at times, to have him already being able to guard 1 through 4 and maybe 5 occasionally, and then slide all the way down to the 1 to match up directly on players that might be considered some of the best on their respective teams on a night-to-night basis. It don't get no better than that, in my opinion. You wish Fred VanVleet all the best, though. It's highly unfortunate that you get something like this going down. Just as training camp is getting underway, just as people are getting their media day interviews in and stuff like that, and they got to hear that news, it's devastating stuff. But obviously, an injury of this sort typically has this label on it. So he's going to need to take all the time he can in order to heal up from this. The 76ers would sign Emoni Bates to an Exhibit 10 deal. And again, similar boat is Sharife Cooper when we're talking about these guys who had a lot of buzz coming out of high school. I've already touched on the entire Emoni Bates kind of progression here, though. But he's still got some time. You know, he is only 21 years old. It is literally, and I say this every time we are talking about Emoni Bates. For him, he just needs to fill out his frame. He just needs to fill out his frame. Because, in theory, a 6'10 small forward who can handle the ball in the way that he's proven to, at least in lower levels, could be a pretty good weapon to have. But at least in the games that he's played in the NBA to this point, that hasn't necessarily been on display. And he's been relegated to just a shooter, spacing out in the corner. And it's like, okay, if he's doing that, then, hey, he might be a 3-and-D guy. But then you remember how thin he is. And you know that he doesn't stand a fucking chance against some of the stronger wings out there. And even those who tend to be on the lighter side, at like in between like 200 and 220 pounds. But they're definitely built and they would just run right through them without fail. Like, he has got to bulk up to at least, like, I would say 190 or something to survive in the NBA. Because once you're facing off against that type of competition, these other small forwards out here, even if you are definitely possessing a height advantage over a good number of them, this is a very different crop of players you're fucking around with right now. You gotta be ready for it physically. The talent might still be there, and again, he's got to work on other components of his game as well. But that is the key. Because as long as this fucking shit keeps saying that he's listed at 170 pounds, he's never really going to be able to have legitimacy surrounding the prospects of him becoming a player on a roster for way longer than just a 15-game stint. Like, we're talking about him trying to secure seasons-long contracts, full 82 games and maybe then some with the way that the Cavs are performing at this point, or at least have been performing over the past few years as a team. And you are coming out like this, knowing that you need to sustain after taking multiple hits, even though it's not the craziest contact sport out there. That wear and tear can be unrelenting. And it would certainly get to him much faster than it would for most other small forwards of this kind. Hopefully he breaks. Like, it would be great to see, but I don't know. Steve Nash around this time would also join the Suns front office as a senior advisor. And I'm definitely on board. I mean, it makes sense. Former player, definitely got the connections. So it lines up, honestly. It makes perfect sense. And they desperately need him in the front office so they can understand how the fuck you truly build a roster to the strengths of your star player in Devin Booker. They need that lesson. And maybe Steve Nash can show them a little something. The Cavs would sign Thomas Bryant to a one-year deal, and I find this pretty fucking funny, to be honest with you. Honestly, while Thomas Bryant does only really provide shooting, and even that has proven to be a little inconsistent, at the same time, he's done so well in that regard as of late to where it's like, okay, you will certainly give him that chance. I would certainly, at this stage of his career, take him over fucking Tristan Thompson at this point. Like, when you make that direct comparison between those two, this is an absolute upgrade. And, I mean, hey, the Cavs are really just trying to take advantage of how things are looking for the Pacers right now as well. I mean, they literally poach him from the team as they are trying to navigate through all of these young and just weird center combinations between guys like Jay Huff and James Wiseman. And then in the postseason last year, of course, Thomas Bryant had a couple games there against this exact Cavs team that definitely inspired them to take a harder look at him in the offseason. Because he went ballistic in those games from the three-point line. They couldn't guard that man from the corners. Saw that instantly, and they're like, you know what, okay, if we can't beat him, if we can't stop him, fuck it, we're going to take him from you so that we can get some of that. And I think that's what they're banking on as well. There's definitely a 50-50 chance, considering how his career path has gone, that things don't pan out with this team and that he just refuses to do any semblance of that over an entire season with this Cleveland roster. That would be the most hilarious thing ever. But again, in terms of a direct backup, I mean, you give yourself a little more reliable depth right there. You know that you're getting something out of Thomas Bryant. Like, I mean, last season, even as a backup, just, 6.5 points and 3.8 rebounds on 51% shooting, sure. But you compare that to a guy like fucking Tristan Thompson, and hey, like night and fucking day, bro. Night and day. I mean, literally. Just pulled it up on the basketball reference site right here. All right. 1.7 points per game. 43.7% shooting as a center. Yeah. Gotta pack it up. Got to pack it up, man. And yeah, I'm definitely about to move on from this tab. Because Basketball Reference. Shout out to Basketball Reference, man. They're listing here that he is now a right-handed shooter. And I guess he was previously a left-handed shooter. Why make that change this late in your career? I don't know. That definitely didn't help him retain a starting job. Or even a direct backup role at that position. So, I guess. I don't know. That's fucking wild. The Pacers would have a bit of an interesting response of their own, though. They wouldn't get a center back, but they would sign Monte Morris to a one-year deal as well. Monte Morris is kind of an interesting character at this point. I mean, he's just been around. Like, that's really my summation of this. He's just gotten around, man. He was a sort of reliable player in Denver for all this time, and then he just turned into a sort of journeyman. Cast away on the Suns last year. Decent amount of minutes, but the production wasn't all there. And I mean, granted, that might not really be a reflection on him. The Suns are just fucking terrible last season as a whole. He's a career 9.5 points per game scorer with 3.6 assists and 2.4 rebounds on 47.4% shooting from the field and 38.9% shooting from deep. If you can get somewhere close to that kind of production from him, then honestly, in a season where you've got to do work without Tyrese Haliburton, that would pay dividends. I'm assuming that Monte Morris would be a backup guy here because Andrew Nembhard would probably slide down to the 1. As much as it would be interesting to see McConnell become a starter, at the same time, I feel like they genuinely love him, and Rick Carlisle would certainly love to have him be a spark plug off the bench like he consistently has been. So I don't know. I can't really see, even though it would be nice, them allowing him to move up like that. And I mean, hey, this is even more mentorship when you think about it for Marquette's Cam Jones, who the Pacers drafted in the second round this year. That could help exponentially for this character right here. Truly. Yeah. I have no problem with that move whatsoever. Especially if he can replicate that to an extent. It's not going to be perfect. I can't really expect it to be. But, hey. It is a season of just... You're really just trying to survive it, honestly. After that Haliburton injury, it's just like, you're trying to do whatever you can. I don't know if they really expect a lot of success this season, maybe making a playoff appearance, but I don't know. Yet the Pacers, they showed it last year that even without the craziest expectations out there, and despite making the fucking conference finals last year, they won up themselves. So, as long as they keep doing what they're doing, as long as Carlisle continues to execute some great coaching, what would truly stop them from surprising the league once again with something absolutely wild? The Heat would sign Precious Achiuwa to a one-year deal. I don't really get the point because they already had him before and decided to punt on him because they thought he wasn't a good enough fit for their team. Yes, it's a 1-year rental, but you really think that that's the case now after what he did in New York? I mean, there were multiple games from Achiuwa where this man was not even playable. Like, it has just not been a great career for him at this point. Like, admittedly, he did have a decent spurt in Toronto, fine. But it got bad in New York. Like, they acquired him to be a sort of spacer of the floor, to be a solid rebounder. And yet, while in the rebounding aspect he was somewhat okay, the shooting was just atrocious. Like, people have complaints about how Josh Hart could consistently be better from range. But in New York, in the 2 years that he was there, he literally averaged just 26.7% shooting from deep. And again, Thibodeau, a guy all about his defense because Achiuwa does have solid defense. And even that was inconsistent on this roster. But even with that being a strength of his, he didn't feel as though he should appear in that many ball games. And he's never really been that much of a starting caliber player yet. But it says something to me when he played in more games last season and his starting minutes and starts overall dipped right down to 10. I'm sure that the Heat aren't expecting the same thing, but this is just such a weird move by them. Because, what is the goal here? Yeah, he's listed as a center and a power forward, but this man is 6'8". He would probably be best as a power forward. But at that point, you'd want him to have a little bit of versatility, and he cannot offer you that in the slightest. Especially compared to some of the other forwards that you already have on this roster. And if you want to make the mistake of playing him at center for some reason, you already have Adebayo and Khalil Ware. And they have enough portability to switch in and out amongst those two. I think Ware would fit this position perfectly, right? Obviously, Ware has had his own struggles with shooting. But he's definitely going to rain down and crash the glass. He's definitely proven himself to be a lob threat. I don't know. He can just offer a little more compared to Achiuwa. So there's always going to be a bit of favoritism and a bit of preference for him over Mr. Precious right here. I just got to be honest about that. I don't know. I guess we'll see how that ends up going. On last Friday, the Lakers would sign J.J. Redick to a 2-year contract extension. Last year was certainly a trial run. And I think J.J. Redick, for a rookie head coach, passed the test. It's as simple as that. I don't really have too much to say or add on to much about this. That is a very good decision for them to make at this moment. Obviously, there were some issues with him as head coach. There were sequences where he couldn't figure out proper lineups in the right moments. Obviously, the debacle down the stretch of that Timberwolves series does not help his fucking case. But it is in year one. And the fact that they had such a good record, especially a very hot fucking start to the season as well. Like, that deserves to be rewarded. But now with that, and with you signing him to this extension, now comes a bit of an expectation. And especially with them now having a full offseason to work with Luka Doncic behind the scenes. Obviously, with the players that you've already had in LeBron, in Dalton Connect, in Jackson Hayes even, and that could be a little awkward as well. Austin Reeves, obviously. And then also bringing in DeAndre Ayton as well. And I think for JJ Redick, naturally the dynamic is going to be between LeBron and Luka Doncic. That's going to be where a majority of the focus is because they're the stars, the unquestioned superstars on the team. But as he goes further and further into his tenure with this franchise, he should look to keep an eye out on trying to make sure that DeAndre Ayton truly makes this thing work. Because if he can emerge as a solid enough center for them, like I said, the Lakers could definitely go toe-to-toe with some of the best teams in the Western Conference. They already can with those two. But having Ayton take that rise is essential to them taking the next step as a potential contender in the West. And that flow would naturally come from trying to utilize him in the athletic game. He's always been a finesse guy, but he has the athletic tools you would need for him to be a vertical threat. He doesn't take advantage of that enough. So it'd be interesting to see how they work on that throughout the season. And if they hit the ground running with it immediately. Like that first game, obviously it's game number 1, but could definitely set the tone for Ayton's tenure with this team. So we'll see. Jared McCain would also have another setback. He would suffer a torn UCL in his right thumb, so he's definitely going to miss some time. Now, it's not as severe as lower body injury was last season, which is like, that's obviously much better. There's a chance that he'll still get to play a good portion of the season, but he's still going to miss the opener and like a couple weeks after that. I don't know. In the games that he played last season, tremendous promise. And even with him being drafted 16th, looked like one of the steals of that draft prior to going down. And knowing that George and Embiid are still going to be out for quite some time, it looks like the 76ers fans need all the hope that they can get. It nearly got stripped away from them when they heard that Jared McCain got hurt again. But with him being able to play, it's like, okay, a vast majority of the season is still on the table for him to showcase what he's truly got. And it looks like he does, in fact, have some very great things in store to provide for the 76er team. They need every bit of it they can get. I'd like to think that he can work his way into the starting lineup eventually. Also, that statement is really coming from nowhere when you consider what would happen with Quentin Grimes, which I'll get to in a second. As for Brandon Clarke, he is dealing with knee synovitis and he's going to need surgery, so he's set to miss the next 6 to 8 weeks as well. Something's always going down with Brandon Clarke. It's highly unfortunate, man. His defense, even though we like, to give Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot of the credit, and obviously he's got a DPOY to his name, when Brandon Clarke has been active and healthy, man, you can make an argument that he's one of the better Memphis Grizzlies defenders that they've got on that roster, man. He's definitely limited on the offensive side because he is not a spacer of the floor. He is a purely traditional power forward here. But he is a gritty fucking player. And that is shown through time and again for them. Last couple years have not really been so kind to him, though. I mean, he's never even played over 65 games, which would make him ineligible for any awards if he was a player that was consistently up for them. But we're talking about in 2024 season, just 6 games played. And now this season already starts off for him on just a terrible note. It sucks. Might not hurt the Grizzlies too bad, at least on the surface. But, man, when we get in some of these contested games, man, his defense is definitely tremendously valuable. You'd love to have it. And yet, that knee synovitis and healing from that after the surgery is going to keep him out for an extensive amount of time. Truly, truly horrible stuff. All right, on Sunday, a lot of madness would happen. The Warriors would make a move. They made a move. One of the first moves they've made all offseason. And it was something that I was absolutely against. They signed Al Horford to a multi-year contract. And it's like, honestly, as a small ball center, it's like, okay, I kind of get it. He's proven to be a tremendous defender. He's proven that, hey, when it has called for him to become a better three-point shooter, he's done that throughout the course of his career. So, no matter what role you put him in, he'll find a way to succeed. That's how he's lasted in the NBA for this long, even though he might not be considered as one of the better players out there. However, a multi-year contract extension, and this man is already 39 years old. Also, if we're talking small ball centers here, well, Draymond Green, in some, schemes, would already serve as that right now. Do you really need another that much? I'm not all too sure about that, to be honest with you. I don't know. It's just incredibly weird, man. It's not that he's a bad player or anything. It's just like, man, like, you could have had Giannis. You settled for Al Horford. Like, oh my goodness. But no, he definitely is a player that impacts winning. Even if I'm kind of having these bitch-ass complaints, he will definitely provide value on that front. Without a doubt. Like, he was able to help the Celtics that much, even with Porzingis being out for that extensive amount of time with how injury-prone he is. And although the Warriors don't really have a true center right now, they can't say that the people that they've had at center over the past few years have ever dealt with those kinds of injuries. I mean, to an extent, Kevon Looney for only a little bit of time. But that man was as durable as they come despite not being in the best condition. And obviously Draymond as well, even though he likes to, he's definitely had his fair share of injuries before, but the only thing really getting in his way over the past few seasons of having full 82-game seasons played is because of fucking suspensions. Because he likes to hit and hurt people. But it should be interesting to see how that fit works out. What would be a little bit better for the Warriors, though, although it's just kind of compounded on things that they've done in the past. Hey, they would re-sign De'Anthony Melton. Yes, Mr. Do Something is back with the Warriors squad for this season. Playing exceptionally well in the first few games, and then the untimely season-ending injury allowed him to serve as trade bait for Dennis Schroeder. Like, just wild stuff, man. But hey, at least he found his way back to the squad. But also re-signed Gary Payton II, which does make sense. All right, as for Anthony Davis, yeah, wild update for him. Because as multiple reporters, Mavericks reporters, NBA insiders would state, following retina surgery this offseason, AD must wear protective goggles for the rest of his career. And I guess even with that report coming in, hey, the general fan bases have not really given him any time to adjust to it. Because they're already just having a field day with it. They're already likening him to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with this kind of build here. And to be honest, the fact that he was already one of the more dominant power forwards of this last generation, even if the health issues have always been a nagging thorn in his side. Like, I mean, I guess he can't really be too mad at that. But it does suck when you really think about it. Like, I'm sure that people at this point, general NBA fans, have seen the list of injuries that Anthony Davis has suffered literally all over his fucking body. And now we're getting into a situation where he had retina surgery this offseason. Now, it does make sense because he did, get, I think, poked in the eye at some point. And I do remember something stating that, hey, his retina might be on the fritz. But that just adds to that graphic. And it's like, at some point, you just have to sit back and ask yourself, why the fuck can't this man catch a break? Why? It is something every single maybe day at this point. There is too much. There's too much going on with Anthony Davis at this point. Like, it's not even to be like, it's actually fucking sad. And yet he's still finding a way after all these years to soldier through it. But my goodness, like, you have to wear that for the rest of your career. Even with that being a public report. Think about some of the other injuries that he's had in his career to this point. And I don't even think there's been a mention of him having to do anything repetitive in terms of keeping those at bay throughout the course of his career or anything like that. But can you really say that for sure? Can you really be too certain that he might not have to take certain precautions with other parts of his body before going out and playing basketball on a night-to-night basis? It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case at this point. And he is still somewhat in the prime of his career. As injury-ridden as he has been, he's still got a lot left in the tank. If he keeps taking these kinds of weird injuries, man, I just don't know how many more times he would want, honestly, to go through something like this. But you can't question his passion for the game at all. Because I could assure you that if somebody was getting fucked up on and off the basketball court that consistently, they would just give in at that point and not even bother trying to play any more pro basketball at this point. So even though Anthony Davis, People may call him street clothes and shit. Look, man, he's still going out there and putting up solid work, all things considered. So he commands that respect regardless. Giannis would also be in a bit of a pickle. He would contract the coronavirus, and he was, at this point, in Greece, battling symptoms. He is set to return to Bucks facility tomorrow, though. So that might have passed at this point. I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully it has. You just don't want... Yeah. Y'all know. Y'all don't want that again. On Tuesday, the Trail Blazers would sign MarJon Beauchamp to a 1-year contract. I guess it's going to be interesting to see him and Toumani Camara team up. In fact, hold on. No, am I tripping? Wait a minute. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. What? Yeah, let me check this out. No. Okay. I was about to say, oof. But nah, it's interesting, man. I don't know. He's just never really gotten that much of an opportunity. Starts, game appearances have decreased from season to season. He's just never really been able to find his footing in the NBA to this point. And I mean, granted, when you look at the Bucks, when you look at the Clippers, when you look at the Knicks, their wing depth is exceptional. So naturally, it was going to be difficult for Beauchamp to really make a name for himself if he wasn't performing all that well. I mean, with the Blazers, there could be a bit of an avenue there. I mean, the jury might still be out on Jeremy Grant's remainder of that tenure and remainder of that deal. They may try to punt on him because honestly, they thought they were going to get a superstar caliber talent, superstar caliber production out of him. Hasn't happened to this point. And I don't know if Beauchamp can show even any glimpse of elite caliber play. The fact that he's that cheap compared to Grant alone might make him a highly valuable asset in the long run. The Warriors would finally do it, though. They would finally do it. What everybody has been waiting on, man. Not all the other obvious shit surrounding this Jonathan Kuminga situation that people understood already. Would sign him to a 2-year, $48.5 million contract extension a few days ago. And I don't know, it's weird because when you think about it, if I'm not mistaken, Kuminga was asking for something like $30 million. So you get from that, Warriors initially turn that deal down, and then they try to essentially lock him into a very, very detrimental deal in terms of him trying to look out for other options or other teams that may want to service it. Definitely was going to be restricted in that aspect. He was not having that either, and his camp definitely was on the same page there. Then we just get into this month-long stalemate, man. They're just consistently going back and forth with each other. And yet, no real progress was made at all. In fact, with essentially nothing happening, things got to a point where Kuminga just didn't really do anything in terms of media day. He wasn't there at the beginning of training camp, and also at some point, he literally went up to the Warriors brass and asked them, "Do you guys even want me?" I mean, damn. Like, you know what? Hey, I mean, I guess I can't do too much complaining, right? Because it would have been tough to just lose Kuminga like that and not even being able to recoup anything. But hey, they keep him in for at least a little more time. Was mentioned that it doesn't really make him impervious to trade talks. That is still on the table here per the language of the contract, but I don't know. It does give Kuminga a better chance, you know. Like, if he continues to prove himself, if he can build off of that series, especially in the games that Curry didn't play in, if he can build off those numbers that he put up against the Timberwolves in the final stretch of that series, I mean, bro, he's got a fighting fucking chance. The Warriors would also sign Seth Curry to a 1-year deal. And I mean, damn. Finally. Now, granted, both of them are much older than most guys. But that just means a lot, dude. For the Curry brothers to finally be able to share the same uniform and be on the same team when they take the court together. Like, do you know how long people have been waiting for this shit? And it finally happens. Man, I cannot wait to see how that looks. Now, they didn't even have Seth Curry listed on the depth chart initially. He should be there now. He'd definitely be a backup guy. But, man, it's going to be electric whenever they are in the game on the same possessions, of course. Could you just imagine the calls that would emanate from the broadcast teams on those games? If they start going off together in tandem, whether it be him, Steph, for example, passing to Seth and him cashing in threes, or them just taking fucking turns trying to outshoot the other as they're already getting a potential blowout against a team. That would be just tremendous stuff to watch. The 76ers would also cap things off for all 4 of the remaining restricted free agents, rather. Because they would get Quentin Grimes on a 1-year, $7.8 million, or maybe, no, 1-year, $8.7 million, my fault, qualifying offer. So at least for one more season, they've got his rights. But it feels like Quentin Grimes might not be the long-term solution. And I think that could be best for both parties. I mean, the fact that this man, Quentin Grimes, is out here putting forth some of the fucking craziest games down the stretch of the season. We got fucking 21.9 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, and 5.2 rebounds per game split in the 28 games that he had there. Like, that is wild. And far greater than whatever else he has done in his NBA career up to this point. So it serves as a good test for him to prove himself to, I guess, a lot of other shooters around the league. Maybe there's a chance, in fact, that he returns to the 76ers if they value him that much. But he owes it to himself to explore just how far he can take this thing. And as for Jared McCain as well, again, in the event that they do move on from Quentin Grimes, well, there's a vacancy that fills up at the shooting guard position. And to have him do work alongside Maxey as a starter, I don't think anybody would be mad at that. Edgecombe is also one of their top picks as well. So when you think about it, I don't think he would really take that starting role right away. They'd probably have him work up from the bench as well. That would be Perfect right there. And on Wednesday, the Heat would sign Nikola Jovic to a 4-year, $62.4 million deal. Again, why? Just why, bro? Like, I don't understand why they have so much faith in him. It blows my mind. It truly does. But you know what? I mean, it's not the craziest extension in the world in terms of average salary. I guess they can live with it. But come on now, dude. Wow. Alright, that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.